بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. This is introduction for my channel. They call it اكوبام. First, the purpose of this channel is just enlightenment for the people who've been purposely targeted not to get the right information, and especially those kids who born in diaspora or grow in exile. Millions, hundreds of thousands being born outside Eritrea in the refugee camp, outside the country, in different parts of the world. So I will focus as short as I can to enlighten you about the history of your country. Okay, one more thing. I was lucky to be beside my uncle Ibrahim Sultan, the icon of nationalism in Eritrea, who ran the politics, national politics, against all the enemies combined, the Western countries and the Emperor of Ethiopia and other nations which they put their eye in Eritrea. Why? Because of the strategic location of our country, as you know today. This is the whole issue of this channel. So I will try to summarize some questions being asked by lots of young people. And it's a legitimate questions. They are confused. They don't have a common ground, and been put through that by the oldest generation. It's a real conspiracy against the Eritrean people, not to know themselves. And for the sad part that some of the Eritrean old generation, they contribute into that. They put their hand with the foreign power. They've been bought, whether by money or by giving them some prestige or advantage, and they sell out their country for their own interest. But let's start about some stops or stations along the trip from the 40s. There is, I have to mention, there is a few years, every 10 years, repeat itself, and it marked a very important time in our history. First one is 1941, then 1951, then 1961, that's a critical one, and then 1971, and then 1981, and then 1991, and then 2001, that's important part, and then 2021. Those years, they mark a very important point in our history. So the question people they ask normally is, we have a question of national identity, and this issue being tampered with for a long period of time, because the colonial imperialism came from Europe. They have one policy in mind around the world, which is divide and rule. So if you are not united, eventually you're going to fall into the trap, and you're going to be a prey. Now, in 1941, it marks the establishment of the what they call in the Net Party, which is the party which has been formed secretly by the British, the Emperor of Ethiopia. There was a deal between British and Haile Selassie, so they can take the British the Ogaden to form the Great Somalia, to control it, and to give them Eritrea as whatever you call it, as a gift for that. That was the deal. And as you know, for some people, they differentiate between the Western colonialism. The policy of divide and rule is one. The only difference happened, disagreement between British and Italian, when the Italians sided with Germany in Second World War. But the policy is already executed in Eritrea. How? In the highland, the French, before the Italian, in Ethiopia and in the highland, they came as mercenary, and they divide the Christian into more than 3 faction or sect. The Tawhado is the Orthodox, the Catholic and Protestant, and others minor sect. So you have to understand the reality of the people at that time, whether in Kabasa or in the lowland. Most of the people in Kabasa was isolated from the other ethnical group of Eritrea. They don't know. And the rest of Eritrean either, they were not that the strength of the communication was not that strong. Each group of people, or you call it whatever you call it, they call it tribe. The definition may be the same. Like if you go to Hamasien or Kologaza or Sarai, each group is like a tribe. In the lowland, from Dankalia, take it, go all the way to Barka, to Sahel, lowland, or the coastal area up north, or go to Samhar, all this area, each tribe, they have their own land, and they have their own rules, and they live in peace. But since the colonial power, the Western colonial power arrived, and the illiteracy, the weakness of our society at that time, the illiteracy, and undeveloped country, because they were self-sustained. They have their own food, they produce their own food, they have their own, local medication. So there was no infrastructure. So when the colonialism came, especially the Italian colony, they built hospitals for themselves, streets for their army, factories for themselves, So the Eritrean people start sharing as a cheap labor on that facilities. Electricity, electrical station, and for their own houses and villas. And the Eritrean people in their own land was second-class citizen. That's a fact. So they trigger something, they call it, they have a deal with Haile Selassie. He was in exile when the war happened between Italian to invade Ethiopia. When they come close to Addis Ababa, he was taken and he was in exile. So they cut the deal with him that he's going to be the emperor of Ethiopia. Okay, and he have to give away Ogaden, and in return they will make sure that Eritrea goes to Ethiopia. There is no connection in our history that the new name Ethiopia or Abyssinia put their foot in any part of Eritrea, because for thousands of years the Bija kingdom, mainly the Bani Amir, the main force in that area, were the custodian of the whole Red Sea from the south, Somali area, up to south of Egypt. That's a fact. And you can read the history on the last 500 years to see during the Turkish Empire was in Eritrea, and the Western countries, they realized the strategic importance of the Red Sea, so they have to go against or kick the Turkish Ottoman Empire from Eritrea and Middle East, all this area. And after lots of battlefield and this and that, and triggering the hatred against the Muslim by the Orthodox Church, they feed the people that. And the people in Kabasa, by the way, I don't know, people, they have to understand something. The objective reality of that location, you live close to an area which was full of warlords, whether from the Amhara or from the Tigray. Lots of warlords. So the situation there is the people, they develop what they call the defensive attitude. They're always under alert to defend their land and to stay alert anyway. And the Orthodox Church, their leaders, priest Marcos, Abuna Marcos, and Abuna Marcos, and the other one is Demetros. Those two people, they've been trained in Europe. They've been bought by the program being set, the deal set by Haile Selassie and the British to play the role, religiously, to just charge the people in capacity. The people, the simple people, you cannot blame them because they are in the highland. There is no opportunity for, their living was not that good. Poverty, and mountain is not flat land. And the people, they don't read and write, most of them. And that's a fact. Only when the Italian come, they charge them to go for education and this and that and this and that. Otherwise, only the church people only read and write, and they educated some of them outside in Europe, and they read and write Ge'ez. So most of the people, they've been controlled mind and soul and heart by the Orthodox Church for many years. And they believe in whatever the church says. If they go outside that border of what the set by the Orthodox Church, they will face a grave consequences. They cannot attend their marriage, or they cannot attend when they die to bury them, and lots of things. No, so they cut them off from the society. So that's a very harsh, attitude against simple people. So they have to stay with them. So as I said, those two people, Demetros and Abuna Marcos, those are the one who rule the leaders of the Unionist Party. They give the God place for that, claiming that Ethiopia is a Christian country, and they have all the excuses, and the foreigner better than the foreigners and this and that. But anyway, they break the rule of religion by going into the political field. And as I described for you briefly, this is the situation. So they formed in 1941 the Union Party. So my uncle, which is Sheikh Ibrahim Sultan, the old man, we call him Sheikh. At that particular time, he was busy. He was, by the way, he was a translator for the Italian, and he worked in the railway, and he was so intelligent personality that he jumped few years of classes in 1 year. Anyway, he was good in English, Tigrinya, Tigray, and Arabic. So people, they will ask where he learned the Arabic. In Eritrea. For the last 1400 years, when the first exodus of Islam came to Ethiopia, the people, they write the Quran, which is the Islamic book, and every kid read and write. While on Kabasa, no. Up to the the Italian arrive in Eritrea, even if you come to the 50s and 60s and 40s, there was no too many people who read and write, except a few, which is connected to the British or the Italian. They took advantage of that. But the most rest of the people, they don't read and write. We're talking about the general public, the simple people who have full right to learn and to read and write, not to be led by few, and then, they have no choice. So anyway, so the question, the situation goes like that. So the leader, Sheikh Ibrahim Sultan, when he figured out from 41 to 43, of course, he know the history, he read about the history of the world, and he was translator for all the, he visit every part of Eritrea, every village, every region, every mountain, every valley, he knows Eritrea in and out, and Somalia and Ethiopia too. So he learned from that. Then when he see the conspiracy here that Eritrea is going to go from our hand, secretly he formed what they call Islamic League. The Islamic League was not easy because we have problems too on the Muslim side. That problem is the same. If you see the Highland, we have to talk to century 21. In the Highland, the Christian, they've been controlled by the Orthodox Church and few bureaucrats, which is work for the Haile Selassie and Haile Selassie and the British. They've been set like that, unionized party. And most of them, by the way, most of the rich people at that time, they are not even Eritrean, they are from Tigray, but they reside there. That's what exactly happened. So you have to understand what make people goes that way. They have a big meeting, they call it the conference or meeting, Bet Gargis meeting. That's a historical one. And all the Eritrean people, the leaders of, before that, there was something they call it Mahbar Fiqri Hagar. Mahbar Fiqri Hagar, that was after the loss of Italian, they lost the war. There was a lots of grievances, you know what I mean? So they have to solve that and to deal with the new power, which is the British. They have to form that like a council. They call it Mahbar Fiqri Hagar. This is a Muslim and Christian together. I don't like to say that anyway, the Eritrean people, but we have to put the dot into the letter. Anyway, they form Mahbar Fiqri Hagar. But the problem is Mahbar Fiqri Hagar, even the head, he was a Christian leader, and most of them, they sided with the Ethiopian Virgin, in the Nut Virgin. So they became part of the unionized party with Ethiopia. So at that meeting, the split happened, because all of them, they came to discuss the Eritrean issue, and there was the people who talked there, they were originally from Tigray, young people, and they start insulting. I don't want to mention what they say, but young people from in the Net party, they start attacking the other side, and purposely. That's the whole. The plan was like that. So they attacked the Muslim. So when Sheikh Ibrahim Sultan, he listened first, and then he stand up, and he said, "How come young people like that, they say this bad word against the majority of Eritrean, which is Muslim, and the older people, they are not stopping them or saying anything?" And he left angry that meeting, and most of the Muslim people, they left with him, and he went and started forming what they call the Islamic League. Why? Because he have information that the unionized party is being formed since 1941. So there is no way to confront that unless you have mass against mass. That's what he was saying. You cannot break. You know, if you want to break stone, you have to break it with another stone. There is no other choice. Not to form party or this and that. You know, in our case, in our situation in Eritrea, not in the 40s, even now. So he wrote all the constitution for the formation of the Islamic League, which is called for independence of Eritrea. No reservation, with no reservation. So when he did that, some of the people like Martyr Abdul Qadir Kabire, which is from Afar and Okito, and the Giyat Hassan first and Shahid Abdul Qadir Kabire, they come the next day to him. He showed them the paper, and they agree without opening. They won't discuss. Okay, read this and tell me, and then he starts moving around. By the way, this is, put it in your record, more than 21 Ra'as and the Giyat from the Eritrean Christian people, they agree on the formation of Islamic League. You know why? It's very simple. Because the majority of Eritrea, the mass, is Tigray speakers. So when the United Nations delegation come to check the reality about what the people of Eritrea want, independent or unite with Ethiopia, or divided between Sudan and Ethiopia, and the British, they took Massawa and Asab and Asmara, while they give Ethiopia Dankalia, part of Dankalia, to have access to the Red Sea. So they have to come, and so they prepare. So they start moving all over Eritrea secretly, you know, propagating for their idea, and the people was ready, and all the Bani Amr tribes, which is 24 and up, and more than 100 or 200 Ashira, which is small groups, they all congregate, they agree they became a member of the Islamic League. So he was the leader of that, and he used all kind of tactics to bring people, and you know the reality, you know it, right? As I said, same like Kabasa, same like everywhere. No infrastructure, no schools, no education. Even politically, most of the people nationally was not mature enough. So the leader, if he's honest person, and he read, you know, he read good, and he play good politics for the interests of his own people, that's what exactly happened. So when the United Nations delegation comes, they figure out that before they come, by the way, Tigray introduced around 400,000 Tigrawi to change the vote. And they start terrorizing our people in Kabasa, and that history is written in maybe some of it in Alam Sagad. I appreciate his book, and there is some details there. So they start terrorizing the people who sided with the independent. Now, what happened? They introduced the 4,000 Tigrawi, and they majority disturbed them. This is what Sheikh Ibrahim Sultan was saying with my own ears, to change the vote. So around Asmara, majority of them, and in the highland, and spread here and here, in Masawa a little bit here, a little bit there, to change the ratio of the vote. But when the delegation of United Nations comes, they figure out that 85% of the Eritrean people pro-independent. How it happened? Sheikh Ibrahim Sultan, through his, here is what national politics play. He convinced Ras Tasamma, and Ras Tasamma was against the Ethiopian because there is history behind that. So he pulled him, and they formed together what they call Eritrean Independent Bloc. Eritrean Independent Bloc. And this formed the majority of Eritrea, Muslim and Christian together. And when the United Nations delegation come to check the reality, people of Eritrea, 85% is pro-independent, and the 15% go with the Union Party. The head of the Union Party in politics was Talla Bayro. They use him, and then after they finish from him, they kick him out of the parliament. And that's a figure. So Qashu Dimetros, Abuna Marcos, Talla Bayro, and in Jabha, later on we're going to mention his son too, how he played the role. There is always conspiracy. Anyway, let's move on. Even the ambassador at that time, the American ambassador, he stated that majority of Eritrea are pro-independent. This is a fact. And they dismissed some of the delegation, I think from Guatemala or whatever, for stating the reality. They replace him. And you have an Ethiopian review when Eritrea go for vote, and I think from Washington, they put that figure. 85% when the United States, support Eritrea, and the Eritrean independent self-determination, and those people, the educated people mainly from the Amhara in the United States, they call it Ethiopian Review. They stated that if you know on the 40s and the 50s, when the Eritrean people 85% pro-independent, why you push for annexation? No, to unite Eritrea with Ethiopia. They will blame in the United States, but this is a fact anyway. So the other thing is